Today on Trippin' Up, we're revisiting the golden age and the era of the mixtape. Now, Trip, viewers already know who our spotlight is going to be shining on. You don't, but I'm going to give you some clues. Let's see if you can, for your first challenge, guess who the spotlight artist or individual is. And secondly, then we're going to do a game called Hit and Miss. Here we go. Here are your clues. Clue number one, green Chevy van. Clue number two, no way to have it your way. And then clue number three, Ryan Seacrest. Trip, can you guess who our spotlight is on in this episode?
I have no clue. The Ryan Seacrest threw me.
Let's go back into the clues. We'll work our way with a little bit more detail. Green Chevy van refers to a voiceover in a cartoon. Clue number two refers to a refusal to do a Burger King voiceover because the individual was vegetarian.
Casey Kasem.
Casey Kasem. Yes, Casey Kasem. But viewers, I know you grew up listening to American Top 40. Trip and I grew up listening to American Top 40. Perhaps one of the most influential individuals in all of music history, as far as I'm concerned. And we're going to play a game of hit or miss. I'm going to make a statement. And if the statement is true, it's a hit. If it's false, it's miss. We got 10 of them. The very first number one song ever played, that was back in July of 1970, was a song by the Beatles.
Well, miss.
Miss.
It was Mama told me not to come by Three Dog Night.
Very good. I would have got the first part of it as a miss, but I wouldn't have been able to come up with the Three Dog Night song. Here we go. Number two. The show originally launched on just 21 radio stations across the United States. Hit or miss?
Miss. I think it was only 4.
The answer is miss. And that was only 7.
Yeah, I knew it was a small number.
Yeah, small number of stations back in 1970. All right, here we go. Listeners, let us know how you're doing as well. Keep track. Let us know how many of the 10 that you get. Number 3, the famous long distance dedication segment was first used in July of 1975, 5-year anniversary.
I'm going to say miss because I think it was before that.
It was actually after that. It debuted in 1978. And the song, can you name the name? I'm just curious.
No idea. No idea.
I wouldn't have got it. And I'm a huge Neil Diamond fan. Desiree.
Okay.
That was the first long distance dedication song. All right. Here we go. Number 4. For the majority of the 1970s, American Top 40 was a 4-hour long program.
Miss. It was 3 hours until 1978, and it became a 4-hour show. And I think that's why the long distance dedication was added in.
God, does Trip know his stuff? Absolutely. October 78. Number 5, Casey Kasem in 1964 had a spoken word song called Letter from Elena that peaked just outside the top 40 at number 43 in 1964.
Hit.
That is a miss.
Oh, okay.
It peaked at 103. Just
Okay.
we've got a lot of misses here. All right. I mean, you're hitting them. I mean, as far as the answers to these questions. Number 6, the show used Cashbox magazine.
Miss.
That was perhaps the easiest one on this entire list. What did he use, Tripp?
Billboard's Hot 100, and actually what they would do is they would get it before it was published. Now, back then, you had like a 3-week turnaround, so they would get the chart. They would then be able to release the show the same week that the chart was published.
Yeah, the logistics for putting out this program in hindsight are incredible, especially when we take into consideration this next question. We're at number 7. Again, viewers, let us know how you're doing. Tripp, you've only missed one, by the way. For the most of the 1970s, the show was distributed to radio stations on vinyl records.
Now, is the full statement because I know how they distributed the show. It was on record, and they did that till the mid 1980s. It was distributed on albums. So again, most of the 70s, I think you'd have to say the 70s and most of the 80s. So I would say it's a misstatement because it's not correct.
Well, you actually hit it. It wasn't meant to be a trick question. The context behind it was initially they did it on reel to reel, and then they turned over to vinyl records. Started off on reel to reel, then they went to vinyl records up until into the 80s. Yes. So you got the answer correct. Yeah. I'm just amazed by that, Tripp. I'm absolutely amazed. I did not know that. Go ahead.
I got something for the B side, Phil, which we'll talk about with that in regards to how they did the show, and yep. I'll explain that there's a little history behind it too. And let's move on. I'll say it for the B side.
And for viewers, if you happen to have any of those box sets, 1840 vinyl records, just let us know in the comments section. Number 8, Casey Kasem once famously halted a recording session because he refused to transition from a story about a dead dog named Snuggles into an upbeat dance song by the Pointer Sisters.
It is one of the legendary things, and it led to Casey Kasem that any outtakes of that show had to be destroyed on the spot. That's a famous outtake, and that's a hit. That is true.
And I'm smiling because right before I got on the recording with Tripp, I checked out that rant on YouTube, and I'm still laughing about it. It is, yeah. And I'll put the link in this episode's video description. Okay.
Oh yeah.
We only got 2 more left. Tripp is 7 for 8. The first show in 1970 featured both Elvis Presley and the Beatles in the top 10 at the same time.
Hit.
It was one of the last times the two kings of music shared the top 10. It was The Wonder of You and The Long and Winding Road were the relevant songs. All right, here it is. Number 10. Probably appropriate that we sign off on this, hitting this with this one. Casey's signature sign-off, "Keep Your Feet on the Ground," was written by the show's producer. Hit or miss? Keep your feet on.
Say miss. I think Casey came up with that.
That is correct. It is a miss. Casey created the phrase himself and had been using it ever since he had been a DJ back in the 1950s. 9 out of 10, Tripp. Congratulations. Viewers, how did you do? That is our challenge. Tripp, what do you got for the B side on this baby?
Well, one of the things, and you mentioned it about how they put this show together. What they did, and this was the first 1.5 to 2 years of the show, is they would record it in one take. So they would do it like a live show. And part of it was for the mastering of the discs, which is what they went to distribute it, because the reel-to-reel tapes, that got to be a bit expensive. So they would go to the records. And so Casey would have to do them, and these recording sessions would turn out to be all-night affairs. It got to where it was better. Casey did the show most of the time, and then they got Dick Clark to come in and do the show. And Dick Clark was like, why don't you just record my voiceover and then lay it in? And after that, they started to do it. And true American Top 40 fans can tell the difference between Casey when they did the show and they did it, like a live show, and when he voiced over his parts. And that's one of the stories about the show. The other story is, when it started, it was only on 7 stations, as you said. Well, it wasn't on in Los Angeles. And so that night, this famous story is Tom Rounds, Don Mustandi, one of the two, drove up to a mountain in Los Angeles outside of Hollywood so they could hear the radio station that was carrying it down the road via the skip. And that's how they were able to listen to American Top 40. And you talk about one of the transformational shows in radio. American Top 40 gained all this traction in the 1970s because a lot of FM stations came on the air, and this gave them instant credibility. I think one of the highlights of my life, and one of my biggest regrets in my life, I met Casey Kasem in 1995. We started carrying his show in New York, his Casey's Top 20, and Casey came to the radio station, and I got to meet him. Did I bring a disposable camera and take a picture with Casey? No, of course not. My daughter bemoans the fact she never knew I met Casey Kasem. And it was so great to talk to somebody, because I had this vision of Casey Kasem in this magnificent studio in Hollywood. It was a small announce booth. That's all it was. But that's the theater of the mind of radio. And, that was what it was like in the 1970s. And Casey Kasem was bigger than life with American Top 40.
Casey Kasem probably inspired more radio disc jockeys than probably just about any other individual. I mean, of course, you had, when you talk about, I'll call them promoters, of course, you got the name Dick Clark. That would be an example. But I was wondering if Casey Kasem was in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He's not. Which is...
No, he's not? Okay.
He is not. And neither is Wolfman Jack.
Well, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has really... they've done some disc jockeys are in there, but the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has been more of a musician's type of thing. They have not recognized the pioneers, just like and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Dick Clark's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, yeah, rightfully so. But and Don Cornelius, if he's not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, deserves to be for Soul Train. Casey, by the way, I bet you this is something people don't realize. Casey Kasem was one of the radio actors, and he did the Lone Ranger out of Detroit. That was how he was from Michigan originally. And he did the Lone Ranger episodes in the late 40s, early 50s. And that's how Casey became known, and then went out to Los Angeles. And he was in Los Angeles and San Francisco he worked at. And yeah, Casey, man.
Just a couple of real quick things, and we'll wrap up this episode of Trippin' Up. You want to learn more or follow Trip Rogers, you can at WRHQ FM 105.3. That's down in Savannah, Georgia, and or online, which will have the link there, as well as the internet radio station, WTRSradio.com. A couple of real quick miscellaneous things. Among the names that are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Tom Donahue and Johnny Otis. The names, the Snubs, I already mentioned Wolfman Jack, Murray the K. Kaufman, and Allison Steele, not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And the other thing that I'll have for the viewers, you may have not only listened to American Top 40, but you may have listened to the Silver Dollar Survey that was on WLS out of Chicago. Music Radio 77, this will sound familiar to Trip at WABC out of New York. And Boss 30, of course, that's out of KHJ in Los Angeles. Thanks.
No, not Los Angeles, Phil. Los Angeles. Get it right, baby. KH State was Los Angeles.
I stand corrected. Hey, join us again on the Phil Yale channel. Check out some more episodes of Trippin' Up. Let's keep the coffee hot, keep the memories and the record spinning, and let's keep this conversation flowing. Thanks again for joining us on this episode of Trippin' Up.